Don't be an anonymous investor. Join the stock market social media platform public.com. Invest any amount of money and share with friends and new friends. Discover new opportunities such as new companies and potential business partners and useful tools for beginners, and share your experience with friends on public.com. Link in the video description gets you $5 for being a Grid Network viewer. Use the referral code GRIDnet for your free $5 to invest and start investing and networking on public.com.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back into Grid Live Encore. As always, I'm Ben Schneider, joined by Brandon Crossland and Joshua Burch. Josh, Brandon, how are things going for each of you tonight?
Going well. Yeah, going well. Is it summer? I feel like it's summer now.
I can't believe it's August already, guys. I mean, it feels like the season just got started. We just started this Encore show a few months ago, and it's already August here. The season's, well past the halfway point at this point of the year. It's crazy.
What a world. One thing I love, though, is that from now on, the weekend that's just gone, that is the most packed in series are on, about 14 different series that we cover here on. That's gone now. It's only one or two, maybe I think the top is 4 for the next couple of months. So we're over the top of the hill, and now we're going down it at a rocket speed, and we've got a great season to close out.
It's good.
Yeah, well, of course, Brandon, you're going to be joining us a little bit later for ARCA and a bit of an open segment on the state of NASCAR in the Indianapolis area, and, of course, IRP being brought back this weekend as well. But for now, Josh, for the final time for a few weeks here, like you said, we've got a little bit of a break coming up with the summer and everything. Let's talk some Formula 3 and Formula 2 at Hungary before we get into that. So the MP Motorsport teammates Kyle Collett and Alexander Smolyar won the sprint and feature races respectively. And interestingly enough, none of the top 4 in the championship ended up on the podium in either race this past weekend. So, Josh, why do you think the points leaders struggled so much to get a good result? In particular, you had the collision between Leclerc and Crawford on the final lap of the sprint race. And what else stood out to you from Formula 3 this weekend?
They had a baptism of fire as well. Both their races were affected with rain as well. The W Series had a safety car start, but they all started on dries. The only reason I started on the safety cars because half the track on the grids was wet, half was dry on the racing line. So Formula 3 was the only racing series across the whole weekend that was constantly wet for their races, and that threw everybody up because they had no practice time in the wet. It was all dry on Friday when they did qualifying and practice. So race 1 and race 2 was fantastic, and I think Alexander Smolyar put it on pole position. I expected him to drop back in the feature race. He seized the conditions and had his best ever result. New winner in that series as well. Kyle Collett was amazing as well in the sprint race on the Saturday. I think Leclerc had a very difficult weekend. He's closed the title fight up, but that's only because everybody else in the title run was so bad, as you say, as well. Victor Martins as well, I thought, who was second in the title now as well. He had a great feature, but a poor sprint. So that's sort of balanced out nicely. Leclerc was the other way around as well. As you said, contact on the last lap of the sprint, but Leclerc bounced back on the Sunday when the track was wetter. So he sort of got energy from it. But all still meanings right at the top as well. I can't wait to see what's going to happen with the remainder of this season because it is so close, so tight. And Hungary has put now that with 3 weekends to go, we've only got 3 drivers who can win the title. So it's all eyes up front as to who's going to be where. It's brilliant.
And, of course, shifting gears now to F2, we had Jack Doohan win the sprint race, and Theo Porcher took the feature win. As Felipe Drugovich, I know he was dropping several places in the closing laps there, struggling on worn tires. But Porcher, as it stands now, is 40 points clear of Logan Sargent in 3rd place, and Sargent had another difficult weekend, only picking up 1 point. And only 21 back of Drugovich for the lead in the championship fight. So, Josh, what are Theo Porcher's chances of overtaking Drugovich and claiming the F2 title this year? Because we've been talking on this show, it looked like Drugovich was almost home free and in a really commanding state to take this title. Pourchaire looks like he's right back in it.
Yeah, Theo Pourchaire's had a fantastic couple of weeks as well. Second in Paul Ricard as well. This is his third feature race win of the year. He hasn't won a sprint all season. He has won features constantly as well. 3 of them now. So Pourchaire's put himself right back in to this title fight. As we've been saying throughout the years as well. After Drugovich dominated Barcelona, took pole position, fastest lap in both races and both race wins as well. He had a fantastic championship lead and only he could throw it away. And that's exactly what he did. Poor races at Silverstone, poor races at Paul Ricard, and again a struggling weekend here as well. I think he was still in the top 5, but again poor weekends and struggling with his tyres, as you said as well. Jack Doohan actually just while the sprint race was up as well, second sprint win as well, back to back. Fantastic weekend for him. Poor decision. He was the only one out as well with contact and a power failure as well in his car on Sunday. Heart went out to him. I'm thinking as well that Pourchaire has got every chance of overtaking Drugovich now. We've got a triple header and then a 2-month break till Abu Dhabi to round out the season. So we've got Spa, Netherlands, Monza, then we go off to Abu Dhabi as well as the season finale. So we've got a fantastic run now for Pourchaire to get on a tracks he likes to get ahead. And Drugovich has never really done that well at Spa or Monza either, whereas Pourchaire has in the past. So this is definitely going Pourchaire's way.
Oh, we have a comment from our own Adam Lemery's here. Josh, do you see Logan Sargent in F1 next year after Alonso going to Aston Martin? It looks like we may have lost Josh here, actually. Looks like the screen is frozen. Josh, can you hear me? Maybe not. We'll give Josh a second here.
Hello, London. Can you hear me?
Hey, yes. We lost you. We lost you for about 10 seconds, but you're all clear on my end now. Yes, we have a comment from Adam asking, do you see Logan Sargent in F1 next year? And of course, I'll give you a chance now to react as well. A bit of a surprise, Fernando Alonso going to Aston Martin to replace Sebastian Vettel. Of all people, who would have thought that?
I know. I mean, it came as a bit of a shock to me as well. And I must admit, I missed the announcement because after we did with the wrap-up show yesterday, I got to bed about 2 a.m. and didn't wake up until about 11:30. And of course, Monday is usually a day I try and keep as free as possible. So I actually got woken up by my dad, who came into my room and woke me up and said, I've got some great Formula One breaking news for you. I went, oh God, what is it? He says, I know who's replacing Sebastian Vettel. I said, is it Schumacher? He said, no, Fernando Alonso. And I was like, what? That completely came out of the blue. We've been going on all season about how Vettel will retire and Schumacher will take his place. Now, we knew Vettel's retirement was true. And after what I was saying throughout the weekend as well, I was hearing that it's a done deal. It's a done deal. Schumacher, he's just got to sign the contract. It's done. He's there for 2 years. Come Monday morning, Alonso's there for 2-3 years. I don't know. I've been running around all my sources in the paddock. The only thing from one person who said to me as well, from the Haas team as well, who said that, oh, it was Ferrari. That's it. That's all they said to me. Ferrari. Now, I've got no idea if Ferrari kept him there because they want him in the Ferrari main team and they don't want him going to Aston Martin, which is practically a Mercedes B team as well, that Schumacher could end up at Mercedes. I don't know, but the only thing I've heard is Ferrari, literally just that. So I'll do some digging and try and report as well. Maybe I'll go on the show with yourself, Kobe and Adam midweek as well and find out more. But that's all I've heard today is that it's Ferrari. So I think it's good that Alonso is still driving. I think he's definitely got the talent. We've seen him still had the hunger. Second place in Canada was fantastic in that qualifying session as well. So I think a team with Aston Martin's good. But to me also, Alonso always has a habit of leaving teams just as they turn good. I've got a problem he's got in now because he's put all that work into Alpine for 2 years.
I don't know if Josh might be having some internet troubles, but it looks like we might have.
Now they're going to go.
All right, it looks like Josh is suffering from some poor connection here, so we'll give him a minute once again. Kobe says Oscar Piastri probably smiling right now. I'd have to say I agree with that. We've been saying on this show all year as well that Piastri was kind of having a spot taken from him, from Alonso being 40 years old now and still racing in Formula One. I've got to think that seat is probably going to be his now that it's been vacated with Alonso heading to Aston Martin, and now it looks like Josh has dropped off completely here, but hopefully we can get him back. So in the meantime, I will bring Brandon back onto the screen. It's a live show. Sometimes these technical issues happen. We know all about those, but hopefully Josh will get back in here. Just to follow up real quick on the Alonso news, so that we can give Josh another moment here. It would be interesting to see, if there's any connection there, because obviously Mick's father, Michael, is a legend with everything that he did with Ferrari. But at the same time, I think a lot of people forget this. He came out of retirement and helped build the Mercedes team from the ground up for a few years before Lewis Hamilton came in. And, obviously the rest has been history from there. So I think, there's reason that Ferrari and Mercedes would both want the Schumacher name because of what Michael did for each of those teams. But if Ferrari are keen to hold him for a couple more years, maybe there would be some reason there to maybe block a deal to go to an Aston Martin or a Williams or a Mercedes affiliated team such as that. But we'll just have to wait and see what happens on that front. It's one of the silly seasons we've had in years, and I think that's the case all across motorsports. We've got more news today with Alex Palou maybe countersuing Chip Ganassi Racing. Who knows where all that's going to go. But as for right now, I want to have kind of an open segment here and discuss something that's been on the minds of a lot of fans this weekend. And Brandon, of course, will bring you back in here for that. NASCAR and the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. It's been a strained relationship really for the last decade and a half, ever since the 2008 Brickyard 400 and that whole tire debacle that led to a very, very bad race with multiple competition cautions that came even more frequently than they were expecting going into the race. Probably reminded some fans of the 2005 United States Grand Prix with those tire issues. But Brandon, I'll go to you first here. What was your reaction to the past race weekend at IMS on the road course? Do you think the Brickyard 400 should come back? Should we go back to the oval? Should they leave IMS entirely and go down to IRP just down the road? What do you think should happen?
Well, my first inclination is to look at a tweet like Kevin Harvick's and think, oh, it's just a guy that's complaining because he's had success at Indianapolis on the oval, and now that he doesn't have success with the road course, he's just complaining about it. But I think there's a lot of ground to what he said. I forgot exactly what he said, but it was to the point that we're disrespecting this place by not being on the oval. We need to go back to the oval, and we're wasting our time here if we don't. And so, in so many words, and I think I completely agree with that. And I think the conversation you and I had before the show went on is to that point that we need to get this out of being in its gimmicky stage right now and treat this place with respect. It is the racing capital of the world. And we're not going to be on the oval. If NASCAR is not giving itself enough respect by not being on the oval is what the issue is here. And I know they're not going to be able to fill all the seats like they did in 94, but they need to try to get back on the oval, give this Gen 7 car a chance, at least on the oval, and see what kind of racing product it can put on. And if it does, then the fans will return. There's a pretty good turnout there for the road course. With the seating that they have, and give it another few years or so, maybe to 2030 or so, like you said. And if things come to that and it's still not delivering, then it's time to leave Indianapolis. I mean, we beat this dead horse way too long, but that's probably not the way it's going to go because there's too much money involved, unfortunately.
Well, I found the direct quote from Harvick. It was from Daniel McFadden. Tweeting it out a couple of days ago. Harvick said, quote, "Not running on the oval is embarrassing for our series." And a friend of the show, Matthew Owens from USRN, Josh, I know you know him and worked with him quite a bit this year as well. Matthew was tweeting out all week, "Bring the Brickyard 400 back. We need to go back to the oval." He was so upset yesterday that he said he's changed his mind. NASCAR doesn't deserve to be there at all. So, Josh, I guess to follow up on that, is there an idea that maybe a track like IMS, and you can maybe throw Daytona in there as well with the carnage that we see of Daytona 500 every year. Is there the idea that these racetracks are so historic, they're so prestigious that we need to give them the respect that they deserve, and dive bombing someone 5 wide into turn 1 as 2 drivers try to take the access road to avoid it and cut the course? Is that just embarrassing and making a mockery of, as Brandon said, the racing capital of the world?
Yeah, it's effectively it's horrible because I did watch the races when I eventually woke up this morning as well. I put it on and I watched the whole thing as well, and it was a okay little road course race, but it felt like we weren't at Indianapolis as well. This is NASCAR, for God's sake. You give it such a spectacle. You see Daytona, and they're all packed in as well. Go to Indianapolis, and you're usually used to seeing it all filled up with fans as well, and that was just embarrassing across the weekend as well. The three cars that went straight onto turn one, I thought, oh, well, they forgot that they're on the road course, didn't they? That was ridiculous. And then we went into overtime. That last 15 minutes of that race was some of the worst racing I've ever seen in my life, and it's happened second year running now as well. I don't like it. I don't like that NASCAR sort of belittling themselves and belittling Indianapolis as well. It's not really fair. I've got the perfect solution as well to what we need to do. And I've been saying it for years now as well. You want to get people back to Indianapolis and to care about it as well with NASCAR being there. You do what you do for Indy 500. You limit the TV broadcast around Indiana and you put it on tape delay. That'll get the local fans into the circuit as well. But don't charge the earth for it. Slash the ticket prices. Make every ticket as cheap as you possibly can. Even if you can't make it, think, oh, well, we'll lose a bit of money. Don't care. Get the fans in those seats. Give the tickets away for free if you have to. Get them in there as well. And get these people viewing it because they'll come back and they'll pay for it as well. Because that track is huge and this racing with Gen 7 is fantastic. So slash the ticket prices. Get the fans in. Also, run both weekends, one before, do the road course race like IndyCar do as well, and then the next week have a whole week build up, put the practice midweek like we have with the Indy 500 as well, put qualifying on a special day as well, build up the hype, and then on Sunday have the big main race. And here's a little thing for you: remove the stages, make the Brickyard 400 a 400-mile dash from green flag to checker flag. No caution flags for mandatory pit stops, nothing. No stage flags. Make it a classical race. Make it easy to understand for the people as well. Make it a one-off event as well. Keep the same points, just make it special. And because that's what it deserves. So I will also say do the same for Daytona. Remove the sprints at Daytona as well. But here at the Brickyard, run for 400 miles non-stop because that is what it's mainly about. We don't see these stage flags in IndyCar for the 500 because it's all about the 500-mile dash. Let's do it for the Brickyard for 400. So to wrap up all this, slash the ticket prices, remove the stages, have 400 miles non-stop, and just go for it. Make the event needing for it because I guarantee you drop the gimmicks and put it on pure racing in the heart of America racing, the racing capital of the world. You do that and pure racing, fans will come back massively. Just make it work.
That idea is so great, Josh. It'll never happen because their minds are so far gone. They're never going to get back to that point that we've progressively over the years, we've moved one step at a time away from that golden era. And that idea is not coming back. They don't think that works anymore.
Get me running it.
Yeah. Let me tell you, Josh, even on Saturday on the pre-race show, I would have agreed 100% with everything you said. I'm going to have to take back and go on record here because I said on Saturday's pre-race show I would not mind seeing both the road course and the oval on the schedule. I said, look, I get that you want more road courses. The next gen is supposed to be designed for road courses. You know, let's run the road course one week. Let's run the oval the next, or let's have a doubleheader. I don't know how quickly you could get. I mean, it's IMS. I assume they could get the track converted pretty quickly. And
but we saw it a couple of years ago, didn't we? Because IndyCar ran the road course, and then the next day they ran the 400 on the oval. So pretty quick.
Yeah, we could do something like that. That's what I was thinking 2 days ago, and then we saw the race weekend. And I was willing to give it another chance. I said, well, you know, the whole thing last year with the curb coming up, as long as they make sure the curbs don't do that this year, you know, maybe we'll see a better race. Maybe drivers will treat it with a little bit more respect. That obviously did not happen. And I think at this point, it's clear the road course was, I mean, let's be honest, the road course was designed to bring Formula One to the racing capital of the world. They haven't been there since 2007.
And it was a boring race anyway.
Yeah. And Josh, you can speak to that better than me because, you know, my first year watching racing was 2007. I wouldn't get into F1 until several years down the road there. But I think, you know, we're going to have 3 races in America next year anyway with this new race in Las Vegas coming in. So I think the ship has sailed in terms of Formula One being at IMS. if they were to bring F1 back to IMS, obviously you'd run it on the road course, but I think that's not going to happen for a very long time if it ever does. So maybe the road course, just generally speaking, I don't think the IndyCar races there have been that memorable either. I mean, you had the memorable standing start, but it was memorable for all the wrong reasons. The inaugural race in 2014 when Saavedra was on pole and stalled it, and I think a piece of debris even hit the mayor of Indianapolis that day. It was not a good look at all, and that's kind of been the tone that's been set for the IMS road course in recent years. So I just think, if NASCAR is going to be at IMS, what's the point of being there if it's not going to be on the oval? You had obviously the whole debacle in 2008 with the oval, but I understand that you're probably not going to fill in 250,000 or 300,000 people ever again. That ship has sailed as well. But there's something special about winning. I mean, let me be clear. There's something special about winning any race at IMS. I'm sure Tyler Reddick, AJ Allmendinger winning last year. I don't want to take anything away from them. But, the oval just feels different. And I think you saw fans and drivers saying the same thing. It feels weird to be going the quote unquote wrong way.
The wrong direction.
Yeah, some drivers weren't even using the quotes. You're going the wrong direction down the main straightaway at IMS. It just doesn't feel right. It just doesn't feel the same. And the prestige isn't there for the Brickyard 400. But then there's the argument as well that the Brickyard 400 lost its luster. And I'll admit, I was saying this, as recently as 2019, 2020. You look at the empty grandstands, and it's not a good look for the Cup Series to only be bringing in, whatever it is, 40, 50,000 people in a place that seats 5 or 6 times that. It's not a good look for NASCAR to have that. The races haven't been that memorable. So what makes this race a crown jewel aside from the fact that it's at IMS? So you have to ensure that you're putting on a good show, but you're doing something to bring fans into the seats. Josh, you mentioned the blackout, which I think, kind of went away in the COVID era. I think now we've come out of that enough that maybe that could be considered bringing that back so that you give the local fans incentives to actually go out to the racetrack if they want to see the race that badly. So I think there's a lot to consider here, but I think it's worth giving the Brickyard 400 another try. If not next year, maybe, like we were saying, Brandon, give it a few years away. Give NASCAR a few years to just step away from IMS, let the dust settle. Fans will, start begging for it again, start reminiscing on the good old days. Maybe then you can bring it back. We'll see if a Gen 7 works out on the oval. But until then, the road course has been an absolute disaster. It's unbelievable to me that, I guess you can look at last year's race and this year's race, and I guess this year's race was better by default because the curb didn't come up. But that still doesn't say much with all the spins and all the disrespect out there that we saw. I mean, I don't want to throw Joey Logano under the bus because he was far from the only one, but when you have to turn left to avoid the curb on a 90-degree right-hander and you're taking it 5 wide, I don't know what you're thinking. I mean, he's a champion of our sport. He should know better than that. But that's the nature of stock car racing on road courses like this these days. The IMS road course was not made for stock cars. It was made for Formula One. They're gone. There's no point anymore. Put the race back on the oval if you're going to be there at all, because IRP's right down the road and they put on a great show of the Truck Series. We'll get into that in a second as well. And the Xfinity Series never should have been there to begin with. They should have never left IRP themselves. So that's I think I covered every single angle there. I see we have a comment from Kobe as well. IMSA is returning to the IMS road course next year for a sprint race. Then it'll host an IMSA endurance race in 2024. Josh, Brandon, I don't know if you guys want to chime in on this, but I've got to be honest with you. After watching the last couple of years of NASCAR on the road course, I'm very concerned for this IMSA race in terms of whether or not that's going to be a good product, with IMSA or not.
Well, I think they run a lot differently than a Gen 7 stock car. I think IMSA will be able to handle it. And also, don't mean to be rude, but I think they may have some better driving etiquette and manners out on the track as well, because they know how to handle themselves out there for multiple hours. And so I don't think it's going to be any problem with the sports cars and endurance cars and things. But
the one thing that does bug me actually as well with that IMSA as well is that they gave it like 30 seconds of airtime during the IndyCar race on Saturday evening as well. I was hearing that through my headphones as well, and I was like, "Oh, is that it? Okay." I would really like to see, to be fair, a 24-hour race does sound very interesting, but to me, I've got a bit of a thing in my mouth there. Sounds better on an oval. Sounds a bit more exciting. 24 hours racing on an oval. That sounds exciting to me. That could be entertaining. I'd watch that for 24 hours. Wouldn't you? 24 hours.
Well, I would, but maybe not for the driving spectacle. Maybe more for the, oh boy, here we go.
Yeah, but it
kind of like Derby. Yeah,
let
but
me
it's kind
say,
of it's kind
go
of like
ahead,
moon
Brandon.
cars, 24
Moon
hours of
cars, yeah.
Martinsville. Yeah, that's kind of what that feels like.
Let me say this: you got NASCAR going to Le Mans next year's the exhibition entry. If the cars can last 24 hours, you want to put a 24-hour NASCAR stock car race in the Daytona Oval. I don't think you're going to have anybody left by the end of the 24 hours. They'll probably all wrecked out, or the cars won't have made it to the end or whatever, running wide open. But that would be interesting. 24-hour race on an oval. We'll have to see if there's anything that you could think of doing that. Maybe you might just have to relegate that to iRacing if you want to create a spectacle like that. But there's a lot to consider, obviously, with NASCAR's current relationship with IMS. But to me, it's so broken right now. The status quo is not doing it for anybody, and something has to change. Whether or not that's going to the oval or stepping away for a few years, the road course, I think we can label that experiment as a failure at this point, and we need to change something up going forward. Josh, you have one more thing to add, real quick?
I think you've hit the nail on the head there as well. I think, why not? We've got technology now is so far advanced that why don't we get the Gen 7 cars, scan them, scan the base model, get it into an iRacing or whatever simulator you want, and get the drivers together, get some top esport talent. There's tons of them now. Get them in the seats, get a full field out there, see how they go on the oval with the Gen 7 car. And if it's entertaining and it's good to see, if they treat it properly, like a proper race, I think that's a great simulation test. Why are we doing that? I mean, that won't take much. That won't take much at all, actually. I mean, that's a great test. That's, I think, what needs to be done now as well. Technology is now here where we can literally scan the entire streets of every single planet and walk through them in virtual reality. We've got the technology now. Scan the cars, get them in. Let's see what these tracks are actually like before racing. I mean, how much time will we have saved with racing in Formula One in Qatar last year if we'd just done the simulation and realised, oh, that's just a bit boring, we're not going to go there? How much time would this save? We would have so many more great racetracks if we just did that. I think you've hit the nail on the head there as well. We should get that technology working and see if we can give the data as well and the analysis. Are the Gen 7 cars good on this track, yes or no? Even get a couple of them together, like when NASCAR first came to IMS as well. And we had that inauguration day with everyone was running around at racing speeds as well, just trying to see what it was like. Get that going again. Let's get some data on these ovals. And if it's possible, then just go back. And as I said, slash ticket prices, put the blackout in effect, get people in there. And people will come back when they see great racing. Everyone always does. How many people said, oh, we're not going to watch Hamilton anymore. We're not going to watch Verstappen anymore after last year. They're all back now and they're all cheering on this season.
I'll defer to Brandon on this one since, correct me if I'm wrong, but you actually do iRacing, right? I have very minimal experience.
Weekly. Yeah. And that'd be an accurate representation for sure if they're going to take it seriously. But yeah, even if the reason that I don't think that's going to happen is because I'm afraid they're just not interested in trying the oval. I think the people who are making decisions seem to be burned out, and they seem like that's not even in their head right now. Like they think that's not what people want for some reason.
Well, the road course may be entertaining to the folks that like the carnage and like the controversy, but I think for the racing purists, it's borderline blasphemous to be going the wrong way down the main straight in a cup car. And again, no disrespect to AJ Allmendinger, Tyler Reddick, and I know AJ was just over the moon to be in that photograph that was taken this week of all the winners in Indianapolis, and he deserves to be there because he won a stock car race at Indianapolis. He didn't make the schedule up because he's a road course expert and begged NASCAR to run the road course. He earned it. He deserves to be there. But at the same time, the NASCAR Cup Series, if they're going to be at IMS, I think it's clear at this point the oval is the way to go. But then again, in 2020, some fans were saying the Brickyard 400 was completely pointless, and that was just 2 years ago. So maybe we need to step away for a little bit and then come back. But we'll see what they choose to do going forward. One more comment from Adam Lemeries real quick here. Bring the Xfinity Series back to IRP. Loads of memories for fans. Joe Nemechek won his first Xfinity, then Busch Series race there. Well, we'll get into the Xfinity Series in a little bit. Brandon, do you have one more thing to add before we go into ARCA?
Oh, I was just going to reiterate, maybe the 2020 sentiment of fans' reaction after that year is exactly why they're not even considering the notion of testing the Gen 7 on the oval at Indy. And that's probably why we just need to step away for a couple of years.
I think that's a fair point. They always say be careful what you wish for because you just might get it. That fans were begging for more road courses, and again, I'll admit I was among
Me
them. But
included. Me included. Yeah.
I mean, and listen, when I say more road courses, I meant Road America and tracks like that, which is now going to be taken off the schedules for the Chicago street circuit. I didn't mean necessarily a Charlotte Roval. I didn't mean let's be honest. IMS is really a Roval. You're using the main straightaway of the oval track for an infield road course. It's not really the same as a traditional road course would be. So, I appreciate that they're doing their best to mix the schedule up a little bit, and they are trying. They're making these changes. They're trying to mix things up, but some of it's just not working.
It's like I want road. I'm sorry. It's like I want road course. We have road course at home. Road course at home.
There you go.
And welcome everybody to the 2023 Daytona 500 on the road course. I honestly think if that ever happened, the policy of no weapons at NASCAR races would quickly be overturned. And I think the entire organization would suddenly find themselves fleeing for the Mexican border at this point, if that ever happened. Do not take it away. But I bet you it crossed their minds at one point putting the Daytona 500 on the road course, if it's crossed their minds to do this abomination at IMS.
I'm going to be honest. Watching the 2019 Clash, I remember the farce of a race that was. It was just a single file train, and then Paul Menard and Jimmy Johnson got together and wrecked the whole field, and then it rained, and that was it. I was like, just screw it at this point. Put the Daytona 500 on the road course if we're just going to get a single file train. But then I came back to my senses and realized maybe we shouldn't go that far here. But we could go on about the Clash. That's been a whole thing that has changed almost every year for the last several years, and that future I think hopefully with the LA Coliseum is set for at least a couple more years now. But Kobe saying, I love road course racing, but NASCAR still hasn't figured out how to officiate those races. That's another good point, Kobe. I'm glad you brought that up. The officiating on the road courses needs improvement.
Atrocious.
Want to see local yellows and everything, and adding it might turn off NASCAR fans from road courses. I think, Brandon, like you were saying, we were saying 2 road courses a year in a 36 race schedule is probably too few. I'm thinking maybe we're at the point now 6, 7 road course races might be too many. There might be a medium there between 4 or 5. That might be a better number, so that it's not that we just do it a couple times a year, but we're still primarily an oval series. It's not like IndyCar where it leans road courses and street courses over ovals, or it's in an ideal world it would be half and half. And of course, IndyCar has plenty of scheduling issues of their own right now. But
they have a few oval problem.
You'd like to see more ovals on the IndyCar schedule, but I think NASCAR has always primarily been ovals. It should stay that way. The ratio might be swinging a little bit too far in the direction. Maybe 4 or 5 is where we should settle at. Make one of them a street course if you have to. Again, I'm kind of concerned about the Chicago layout, but we'll just have to wait and see. These are problems that you can't just fix in 1 year, so we'll give NASCAR some time. But the schedule is far from perfect right now, and they need to look at making some of those changes.
I'm just always going to be sad that we're not going to have IndyCar at Daytona or Charlotte, to be fair. I know they did the test there a couple of years ago, but it's 2 great American circuits that we're just not going to, and it really bugs me. It really does. I'd love a race at Daytona on the oval as well. Maybe not the 500, obviously. Don't do it 500 miles. Just do 250, something like that. But just come on, give us it.
That's scary right there. Have you seen anything about IndyCars at Talladega?
Oh, I didn't. Yeah, we were talking about that. Do you remember, Ben, a couple of months ago, we were talking about Talladega as well, and how what was it? The speeds were over 230 something or other, really high.
I think, and again, my history is not as sharp as it was, but I know USAC tried IndyCars at Daytona a couple of times. And I think AJ Foyt said it scared the living out of me, and I don't know. I think if IndyCar is going to come to Daytona, you probably have to do the road course. I just the laws of physics exist, and I think that might be a little. You might be pushing your luck there a little bit. I know the cars are safer than ever, and the aero screen, has saved lives and been an incredible invention. But you still don't want to tempt fate, and I would be concerned about the high banks and how the cars would race there, but. The Charlotte Roval, I know, they used to race the Charlotte Oval there, and of course they had a bit of a tragedy there in the late '90s with some debris going into the stands and had to cancel one of the last races there. But Like you were saying, Josh, Newgarden tested on the Roval layout a couple of years ago. Nothing's come of that, but we do need some more variety in the IndyCar schedule as well. I don't want to get too off topic, though. I want to bring the conversation back because it's been a fun discussion here, but we do have some racing at IRP and of course the Xfinity race to cover as well. Josh, I probably should have coordinated this with you before we were live on the show, but are you here for the whole show, or are you just? I know you want to talk about the ARCA stuff because we've got a discussion coming back up there. But are you here for the trucks and Xfinity as well, or are you going to head off?
I'll head off after because, to be fair, honestly, I like being honest. I've not been able to see a thing from the Xfinity or trucks at the moment because we were darting on everything. Yeah. But I do know ARCA, so don't worry.
Yeah, of course. Well, it was super busy for you this weekend. I know, and we've had a good discussion here. But we don't want to take up too much of your time. Of course, it's after midnight over there where you are. But yeah, let's get into ARCA because I know you're going to love it, Josh. Chandler Smith took another ARCA win for a non-ARCA driver at IRP. You want to talk about the weapons issue that you were bringing up, Josh? I think, you might be bringing out some weapons yourself. The Truck Series championship contender defeated Sammy Smith and Taylor Gray for an opening act win before his main event later that night in the Truck Series. I can see the look on your face, Josh, already. We know how you feel, but I'm going to ask anyway. What's your reaction to Chandler Smith scoring this win?
It's getting worse, isn't it? It doesn't work. I've got to be really careful because it's 12:30. But for God's sake, it just keeps getting worse, doesn't it? One week after the other, it's always somebody who isn't meant to be in the bloody series that gets the win, and it really frustrates me as well because here as well, in Europe, in racing, you've got such a clear progression. You start out in karting, then you go up as well. You go to Formula Fords, then you go to Formula 4, then you go to Formula 3, Formula 2, and then you go, hopefully, into Formula 1. When that doesn't work out, you split off into so many other different areas as well. There's a clear ladder. You don't go from Formula 2 back to karting. And this is exactly what keeps happening over in the American series as well. It's happening in IndyCar, because it's happening with IndyCar going back to Indy Lights. It's happening with NASCAR going from Cup Series to Xfinity to the trucks, and then back as well to ARCA as well. I'm waiting on the day that we have one driver saying, oh, yeah, I'm going to do them all. I'm going to do them all. I'm going to race the ARCA, and I'm going to go race the trucks as well. I mean, we're all at the same track, and they're not all at the same times, are they? So brilliant. And it's just getting so frustrating. I hate it because it shouldn't be allowed. It just should not be allowed. I can't wait to see as well. Imagine this as well. This is what I always say as well at the moment. This is like former presidents coming back because they can. It's basically like we saw all the trouble that Trump had as well when he couldn't accept that he lost the election last year as well. Imagine right now with Biden as the president. I know he's got COVID at the moment, so I hope he's okay. But imagine Trump. The moment Biden got COVID, Trump just came back in to act as the president again. It makes me want to tear my skin off. And I suffer with eczema, so it's easier than people would think as well. But I want to tear my own skin off because of this. It is so annoying. And congratulations as well to Chandler Smith as well. It was a very great win, but for God's sake, you don't need to do it. In ARCA, you are practically playing with children in the development of racing car drivers. You are in sophomore and you are racing kindergarten. Just get out. Just get out. It doesn't make sense. It's something I'm very passionate about as well because it's just not fair on the drivers who are paying so much, devoting so much to their career, and they're just coming on racing as well. It's not fair. I hate it. It's evil.
It doesn't bother me as much with Chandler Smith as it would with a Cup Series regular. I mean, Chandler Smith is not that far removed from ARCA and super late model world and everything. I mean, not that far removed. I know it's still frustrating, but it doesn't bother me as much as the others.
Well, it's the principle of the rule as well. I think,
right.
And again, we're not singling out Chandler Smith, as Josh said. He went out and he earned the win as he has several times in ARCA, but and this is the criticism, and again, we've talked about this on the show before, but I think fans, Kyle Busch is the one who's the most notorious for it. And Josh, you want to talk about sweeping the weekend? Kyle Busch did that twice with Cup, Xfinity, and trucks throughout his career. I think fans sometimes think, the fans they hate it when Kyle Busch does it, but when, the most popular driver, Chase Elliott's in a truck race or, in a junior motorsports Xfinity car, then they all love it then. there's a YouTuber, Kamikaze Games, who's probably the biggest Martin Truex Jr. fan that I know. And I remember when Truex won on the Bristol Dirt last year in the Truck Series race, even he was saying, he shouldn't be here. And, it's the principle of the rule again. We don't want drivers going back down. Drivers going back up, like Ty Gibbs subbing for Kurt Busch, I don't have a problem with that at all. I think, that's a good opportunity for him. You want to talk about the last American F1 driver, Alexander Rossi, got the chance to be called up for a few starts in 2015. So I think, you want to test what you've got against the Cup Series drivers. That's why they all say, they love Cup drivers racing Xfinity. They love, Xfinity drivers, truck drivers coming down to ARCA. Race in those series yourselves. If you want it that badly, try to find a ride there or go out and perform in ARCA so that you can get those opportunities, and then you can measure yourselves against the stars of those series rather than the stars of those series coming back down. So people know where I stand. I think people certainly know where you stand at this point. And before we let you go, I do want to ask you, what is your one shining moment from the feeder series and development series this weekend?
I'll go with Alexander Smolia as well. I think his first ever Formula 3 win as well. He's had a difficult season. He's had a couple of crashes as well. And I think it was honestly such a heartwarming moment to see him dominate a race as well. He was completely dominant in wet conditions as well, proving that he is a talent behind the wheel. So well done to Alexander Smolia. He's my one shining moment for the feeder series this weekend. And speaking of that, I'm delighted to announce my new position as CEO of NASCAR as well, because I can do better job as they can. I'm also now the new head of Ferrari strategy department as well, because even I can tell that hard tyres are not the right tyre to be on. And just quickly to explain as well as I did last night, he had to put the hards on because he started with the mediums, put mediums on his first stop and couldn't go to the softs. That's not a mandatory tyre. So he had to put the hards on. So the clowns as well put him on a medium to hard. I would have put him on softs to mediums as well. That was the strategy that won the race as well. So I'll be the new Ferrari strategist, the new head of NASCAR. For God's sake, I can do a better job than anybody combined as well, because as well, it's unbelievable. I think we could definitely put the world to rights in motorsport if we were in charge. But then again, it's in such a mess. I think anyone could do a better job right about now. To quote Bob Bell, who was the team principal of Renault at the end of 2009 after Crashgate, when everything was exploding around him, Briatore and Simmons being fired and banned from Formula One, ING leaving the sponsor as well. Bob Bell literally said in an interview to Ted Kravitz, I can only look good in the situation. Exactly what I could do if I played as the XO of NASCAR.
We'll see your application on Indeed, okay?
Fantastic. Yeah, I'm just put commentator, looks at screens, can multitask, but don't ask him to do anything that requires a speech.
Well, I got to say, I saw a tweet from our most valuable Philadelphian here. I know Nikola Jokic got the MVP again in the NBA, but Joel Embiid was saying that he could do a better job than the Ferrari strategists this weekend. And, we can talk about Ferrari and all the things that they've blundered all season. Leclerc should be right there in the championship fight, and now he's 3 full races back. So we'll be following the F1 season as it continues on here, but we do have a bit of a summer break. And we have a summer break from F2 and F3 as well. So, Josh, we'll see if it works out with your schedule to join us here again on the Encore show over the next couple of weeks here. But until we see you again, and I'm sure we'll see you at some point this weekend, take care. And thanks again for joining us tonight.
Absolutely. Anytime. I'll be around as always because I never sleep. It's the sport that never sleeps and the story that never stops. So have a great rest of the show, and I'll see you soon.
Thank you. And rest up. You deserve it after everything that you called this week.
Oh, I will. I'm literally collapsing for the next couple of hours. I think I'm going camping tomorrow as well, so that's going to be hell. So that's going to be fun. Not in the UK when it's raining. I'll be very ill. I wish I was camping in America on Lake Silencio in Utah as well. That sounds more fun. But no, I'm camping in Maplethorpe as well. So, well. See you later, guys. Have a great one.
Take care of yourself, Josh. All right. Well, Brandon, let's get into the truck series. And before we get into the race recap, I know you haven't been on the show since last week. Obviously, you've seen the major news by now. Marcus Lemonis and Camping World are out after 2022 as the title sponsor. What's your reaction to that before we get into the IRP recap?
Yeah, I didn't really see it coming with the amount of support that Marcus Lemonis has always shown to the truck series, of course, being the title sponsor, but just going above and beyond really as a CEO of a company, basically sponsoring over half the field, some events, and, giving the Onion, Todd Bodine, his farewell tour to get him to 800 starts this year. He's just done so much for not only for the truck series, but for motorsports as a whole, and also helping SRX out too. It's been a great ride seeing Camping World in this long tenure, but I was pretty shocked that it was going to come to an end after the contract expired. But the talks right now, I guess, if I'm not incorrect here, is that Craftsman might be making its return as coming back from being the original title sponsor of the series. And I know they have a lot of ties with Lowe's now. I don't know how that's all going to play out, but I don't know how much Craftsman is worth right now, but this may be a good avenue for them as a company. And also it's going to help revitalize some brand recognition maybe for the truck series, as a lot of older fans may remember it as the Craftsman Truck Series.
Well, I think Craftsman would certainly be the perfect company to take over. And, it'd be very fitting if they could close that deal. Obviously, nothing is confirmed yet. It's only been a few days since Lemonis and Camping World publicly announced that they are out. But I completely echo what you said. And again, I know, Marcus can be a little polarizing on Twitter sometimes with his giveaways and the deals that he cuts there. But there is no denying that his checks have always cleared, and they have helped so many drivers and teams in this sport continue to stay alive and give them the opportunity to race and have a brand on their car. And like you said, it's not only NASCAR. Obviously, he sponsored SRX and the NHRA, and he's even done some IndyCar deals as well. I remember John Andretti running the Indy 500 with Camping World in his car in 2007, and Scott Dixon ran those colors for a little while. So, he's been all over motorsports, and he's, said there's no money better spent. It's helped grow the company. It's been a great partnership. But again, all good things must come to an end eventually. It's been a great partnership, but it looks like it's going to be a new chapter for the Truck Series going forward, and we need to hope that somebody steps up. Hopefully Craftsman could be one of those options, because it, while we can look back on the great times that we had with Camping World and NASCAR, it is a major, major hole that they will be leaving with all the sponsorship that they poured in over the years. So some companies are going to have to step up, and it's probably going to take more than just one to fill the hole that Camping World will be leaving.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate part. They may end up being the NASCAR Truck Series. They may start adopting that model that the Cup Series did, and then Xfinity, whenever their contract expires, that might start. Since they're already a part of that chain that the Cup Series is in, we might see all three national series have a grouping of sponsorship and just be called, I don't know what you'd call the secondary series exactly.
Grand National, maybe?
Great.
Busch Grand National. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We'll see. Yeah. But I got to say, I think Xfinity gets the most value for their sponsorship, because, it was always the Monster Energy Cup Series and the Camping World or Gander Truck Series, but there was nothing else to call Xfinity instead of Xfinity. So if you're talking about the series, you have to say the name of the company that's sponsoring it. You can't just shorten it to Cup or Truck. So
that's right.
Well done Xfinity there for finding a way around that and getting fans to say their names all the time. But you bring up a good point as well. With this new sponsorship model, and again, I'm hardly a business person, so I don't know, if it's working out for NASCAR. I think only the executives know that for sure, and the accountants and everything. But we'll see. We'll see what the new Truck Series looks like going forward in 2023. But at the same time, a massive, massive hole that's being made here with Camping World departing. It's a massive story, and we'll continue to follow that story as it develops here on all of our Grid Network programming. In the meantime, let's get to IRP. Some good racing happening in the Indianapolis area this week in NASCAR, and it was Grant Enfinger picking up his first win, hard to believe, since Martinsville in the fall of 2020. It's also his first win with GMS Racing since his first career win in 2016. Enfinger was among several trucks that came in for tires after a late race caution, and had made his way up to fourth before another caution forced the race into overtime. We'll get into the incident that caused that in just a minute. John Hunter Nemechek led on the overtime restart, but quickly fell back, clearing a path for Enfinger to claim the win. So, Brandon, are you surprised Grant Enfinger went this long without winning a race?
Yeah, and I think he's surprised too. 2022 has not been kind to him. Neither was 2021. But so far, he's doing worse this year than he was last year. Despite this win at IRP, 4 top 5s, 8 top 10s, and his average finish right now on Racing Reference is 12.8, and average start is 10.4. So, compared to his heyday, I guess, in 2018 through 2020. It's definitely been a long road for Grant Enfinger, but he's this win surely will help at the revitalized Indianapolis Raceway Park. Glad we got that name back on the place, and that we've returned to a good venue for NASCAR. And glad that Grant Enfinger has been there enough to make it into the playoffs, and now he's going to be able to advance.
Yeah, and I think, Enfinger obviously dealt with a lot last year because he couldn't even get a full season with ThorSport, and kind of had to split the ride there, or split the season between two different teams, and ended up missing a race, and they wouldn't give him a playoff waiver. Probably the only instance I can think of where NASCAR's actually denied a waiver to somebody. So it was kind of frustrating for Enfinger fans that he couldn't get that. But, it's great to see him back in victory lane. Obviously, he's been somebody that I think we can certainly call him a truck lifer at this point. Maybe he had aspirations to move up the ladder at one time. But I remember, all his wins in ARCA and, the success that he's obviously had in the truck series the last several years. Good things are happening to good people, and great to see him break that winless streak. And weekend where a couple of winless streaks were broken, because he had Alexander Rossi take the win in the IndyCar race as well. And that was a 3-year winless drought that was finally broken. So good on both of them. Now, I think we have to talk about what led to the final restart. John Hunter Nemechek, did he cross a line by spinning out Taylor Gray and saying he got loose? But, we know he's, a championship caliber truck series driver. Maybe he's a little bit better than that. What was your take on the incident there that forced overtime?
Yeah, that looked like a very intentional pile in. That's going to go down in history. As an example of that's not an accident. That was on purpose. I don't know what was going on there in the truck, but definitely cost Taylor Gray the entire day, and put another bad mark on John Hunter Nemechek for the rest of the field. Not the way you want to spend a Friday night.
Well, of course, who can forget Nemechek and Cole Custer all those years ago at Canada? Was that wild finish where they were off in the grass, and I don't think Nemechek made very many friends that day either. But the frustrating thing for me is that was 6 years ago. Nemechek, has had opportunities to race in Cup by now, and arguably should have been more positioned to take the championship last year of the season that he had, and has really reinvented himself with Kyle Busch Motorsports in the Truck Series. I just feel like he knows better at this point in his career to pull a move like that, and to say he got loose. I'd maybe buy that if that's the younger, more inexperienced driver like maybe Taylor Gray, although Taylor Gray has shown some aggression as well this season in ARCA. But I don't know. I wasn't a fan of it either, and I think a lot of fans probably felt the same way.
Yeah, and he may just be learning it from the more experienced drivers he's driving with. That that's the way he's going to be treated. He feels that's just the way he's going to have to react. But it just causes more and more generations of reckless, aggressive drivers that aren't actually in it for the long haul. They just want to wreck their competition and get to the line first.
Yeah, well, so the finish was kind of frustrating, but I have to say there was some great side-by-side racing and great racing all throughout IRP this weekend. And again, I put a tweet out asking, why did we ever leave this place? And I know that there were various reasons why, but the Xfinity Series should have never been an IMS to begin with. I know we'll get into that here in just a few seconds, but the Truck Series never should have left either. I hope that's a partnership that they can continue for a long, long time to come, regardless of whatever happens with the Cup Series and IMS down the road there. Now, on the note of NASCAR Xfinity, AJ Allmendinger won yet again his 13th career victory, third this season, 9th on road courses in the Xfinity Series, and all three of his wins this season have come on road courses. He got the win at COTA, then at Portland, and now at IMS. So, Brandon, I saw some tweets this weekend that went so far as to say AJ is one of the greatest road course drivers in the history of NASCAR. You think of his career, he's got 2 Cup wins for single car teams, nearly twice as many Xfinity wins on road courses as the next closest driver. Does he have a case as the greatest road course racer in the history of this sport?
Well, I already thought he was at least the most successful one. Now that doesn't mean that Ron Fellows and Boris Said and other greats that are road ringers and Tony Stewart and Jeff Gordon doesn't mean that they aren't as good as him. That just means that Allmendinger has been able to seal the deal with a win to show for it more often. I think they're all great road course drivers, but AJ Allmendinger has been able to consistently make it to victory lane, and that's what's going to have to make him the greatest in NASCAR history.
Yeah, well, I've got to say, obviously I'm a multimedia producer here now. I'm running my own show. I, was in the media center when he won at Portland. You have to remain neutral, but I think most people know I did grow up quite a big Allmendinger fan, and it's been so nice to see his career be revived here over the last few years because he's such a good guy, and he totally deserves the success that's coming his way now. I don't know that I would quite go so far as to call him the greatest ever, because you do have guys like Jeff Gordon and Tony Stewart who won all those road course races back in their time in the Cup Series. And of course, you can go even further back to guys like Dan Gurney and the original road course ringers, and maybe they have an argument as well. But I just think, when you look at AJ's resume, obviously the Xfinity Series, he's untouchable. He's easily the greatest road course driver in the history of that series. But even in Cup, you look at the teams that he won with. JTG Doherty Racing was a single car team. Colleague Racing was a single car team without a charter last year. And of course, the IMS road course race was a little bit crazy. It's fortunate how it worked out with, what happened with Hamlin and Briscoe, but you can't take the win away from him there. And he did it with teams that, do not have the budget, did not have the resources, and certainly in the case of Colleague, did not have the experience of a Hendrick Motorsports like with Jeff Gordon, or of a Joe Gibbs Racing or Stuart Haas Racing like you saw with Tony Stewart. So I think, Allmendinger, obviously has been absolutely phenomenal on the road courses, and he is making a case, if he continues to stay, particularly in the Xfinity Series, long enough and racking up these wins, he certainly will have a case as the greatest to ever turn right and left in the history of NASCAR, because, it's just, unbelievable to look at his track record and, all the road courses that we have on the schedule now. He probably wishes that was the case, 10 or 15 years ago when he was just starting out with Red Bull and Richard Petty Motorsports. But again, just listing those teams off, the only top team that he's really driven for is Penske. And obviously, what happened there with the drug test and everything that didn't work out. But, I think it's easy to forget Colleague Racing hadn't won a single race. I think the first race that they won was actually his first race with a team at Daytona in the summer of 2019 with Ross Chastain. He's really helped build that program into a contender, not just on the road courses. Obviously, he has a few oval wins now, but they have unlocked the best in him, and he has unlocked the best out of Colleague Racing as well. And it's been really great to see their partnership be such a success.
Yeah, the great part is, like, not only is he a contender to be one of the greatest of all time, but he's not even done. He's still got plenty of years left to keep doing what he's doing here.
Yeah, and it's, I always like seeing, you see athletes, in any sport, kind of stall out a little bit, and you think they might be done. You think that their careers might be winding down, and that certainly looked like the case with Allmendinger. And then he gets this opportunity to run part-time for Colleague that's now blossomed into a full-time position. And, they were saying on the NBC broadcast this week, if he wanted to, he probably could have taken that 16 car full-time this year. But I think he really, much like the case of Justin Allgaier, like we've been talking the last couple of weeks, Brandon, I think he's really enjoying racing on Saturdays and doing what he's doing in the Xfinity Series. And, I know he's 40 years old now, but who knows? He may well have 3 to 5 good years ahead of him, and who knows how many wins he could rack up in that time. So we'll just have to wait and see how it works out for him. Now, I want to talk about, speaking of Colleague and Ross Chastain, one of their former drivers. It's a good thing Josh logged off, because Chastain, among several Cup drivers, was in the Xfinity race on Saturday as well, and got into a little bit of contact with Sheldon Creed, spinning him out during the final stage. And it's been a difficult season for Creed, as we talked about on this show as well. He was also involved in some controversy, with the Cup Series finish as well, like we mentioned, going off of the access road and cutting the course. And it took NASCAR far too long, I think, to penalize him. But there's some more controversy there, as there's been all season with Chastain. So, Brandon, we'll give you another chance to talk a little bit of Cup here as well. What are your thoughts on the aggression that we've seen from Chastain this season, not just in the Cup Series, but clearly here in the Xfinity Series as well? And do you think it could impact his chances of winning the Cup title?
Well, he certainly is aggressive. That's what he's got himself known as, and it's gonna affect his title in this way, in the same way. I sent something to you earlier this week of the I know the truth. It's Mary Jane and Peter Parker saying, I already know the truth. Just go ahead and say it. If Ross Chastain makes it to the Final Four in Phoenix, the other 3 are going to leave on a record. And I think that was the perfect picture to show just what Ross Chastain is up to this year with Trackhouse Racing and what's going to happen if he makes it down to the Final Four. his aggression is impacting his chances in a very good way, but also it's he may end up paying for it later.
Yeah, well, sometimes those things can come back to haunt you, and you're saying the other three might end up on a record. He might end up on a record if they get to him first.
Mm-hmm.
Particularly, obviously, there's some bad blood between him and Denny Hamlin and a couple of others this season, so we'll have to see where that goes. I don't want to harp too much on the Cup Series finish because we talked enough about that on this show tonight, but just kind of added another layer of controversy there to both the weekend and to Chastain's season. Now, since we brought up Sheldon Creed, I do want to bring up one thing here briefly as well in regards to RCR. There was an announcement today. I think a more formal announcement is coming tomorrow, but Creed's Xfinity teammate Austin Hill will be making his Cup debut this weekend. So again, good things happening to people in the Xfinity Series that have driven well and deserved this opportunity. We'll see what Hill can do this coming weekend. In the meantime, Brandon, since you weren't on the wrap-up show yesterday, again, I'll give you the whole weekend. I don't know if you have any shining moments from the Cup race after everything that we've discussed, but what is your one shining moment from this weekend in motorsports?
I guess I got to give it to either Indianapolis Raceway Park coming back for the first time since 2011 with NASCAR. It's kind of half and half for me between that and also AJ Allmendinger sealing another victory on his resume at age 40.
Well, I will echo what you said about Allmendinger, and I have to say as well, credit to him in the Cup Series race. I know his cool suit failed, and it was very difficult for him to even get to the finish of that race, let alone bring it home in the top 10 and restarting there on the front row. And obviously, it was absolute chaos on those restarts and got shuffled back a little bit in terms of what happened there. But still a very successful weekend for him, obviously. Also, I want to give a shout out to Mamba Smith. You saw him on our ARCA results as well. And speaking of Allmendinger, the connection that they have helping Mamba get that started IRP this weekend and bringing the car home in the top 10, you really couldn't ask for much more, and a very successful debut for him. And I know I mentioned it on the wrap-up show yesterday as well, but again, great things happening, great people, and hopefully he gets another start, if not this season, next season as well. Maybe this becomes like an annual thing for him. I know it's not his day job. I know he doesn't have plans to try to make a Cup Series career out of this, but it's still so cool to see him out there on the racetrack at IRP. And so that's going to do it for another episode of Grid Live Encore. Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already, and follow us on all of our social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. We even stream on Twitch as well. If you really liked what you saw tonight, you can take 5 minutes after the show to consider investing in our Patreon. Keep us on the air throughout 2022 and beyond. And as always, a special thank you to Colin, Deshelle, Mark, and Robin, who have continued to invest in our Patreon here. If you would rather make a one-time donation, you can buy me a coffee. And as always, thanks to Edward, Amber, and Zachary for doing that. You can buy a coffee for your favorite honor or talent. Any amount will help us continue to grow this outlet. Finally, thank you to our sponsor, Public.com, the stock market social media home. The referral code GRIDnet, you see it there on the screen below. It's also in the description. That will give you $5 free stock from Public.com. Public.com allows you to connect with your friends, make new friends, and use tools to learn how to invest in the stock market. Now on Wednesday, Kobe Lambeth is back with Adam Lemery. They will bring you Grid Tonight. Joe Samniego and Daniel Zeri have the Women in Motorsports program on Thursday. And as always, stay tuned for more Grid Live coverage all throughout the weekend. Brandon, any final thoughts before we sign off?
Well, IndyCar's coming to Music City, and it's going to be another busy traffic weekend, staying out. And after last week with the WWE being in town with their SummerSlam ordeal, there's not much chances to get around Nashville. So best to just stay home.
Well, best of luck of that, and we will see you next weekend as well. For Joshua Burch and Brandon Crossland, I'm Ben Schneider. Thank you all so much for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your week.
Don't be an anonymous investor. Join the stock market social media platform, Public.com. Invest any amount of money and share with friends and new friends. Discover new opportunities, such as new companies and potential business partners, and useful tools for beginners, and share your experience with friends on Public.com. Link in the video description gets you $5 for being a Grid Network viewer. Use the referral code GRIDnet for your free $5 to invest. Start investing and networking on Public.com.